How's everybody doing? We're back again. We're sorry for the big jumble around at different spots. But like I said in the earlier clip, we wanted to go and do a snowfield chat and do practice on our new snowshoes. But unfortunately, the weather changed from what it was. We watched the weather all week, and it was favorable to our trip, and it didn't turn out that way. Unfortunately, we have winds were only supposed to be up to 12 miles an hour, gusts, and when we were up there doing that clip, we had gusts over 20 miles an hour. But we'd like to discuss the structures that we saw, that we did find in there.
Okay.
All the way around. We went to another spot, and it wasn't as snowy. It was still windy, but the side of the hill was just glazed ice. We couldn't have gone down there. We were slipping and sliding all over the place. And we did find those new structures that we filmed. And we did hear some noises down in there that we can't explain. Some weird noises. So then we thought we wanted to finish this chat. We wanted to get the chat in today. And I told Ingrid, I said, I know where to go. It's not supposed to be windy here either, but you can hear the wind through the trees and stuff. We'll get where we're at, we'll get to a little bit later. But yeah, we just put on about 250 miles on the car to do this video. And the place we're at's pretty awesome. We'll get into that, like I said, though. But the whole trip we were talking about the first clip in the snow. We found that parallel that was tied up with twigs. Okay, Ingrid and I talked about the bushcrafters. If they don't have paracord, they're going to use whatever they can find. That's very true. They could have used the boughs of the tree to tie that up with. They could have been practicing. But like I explained in the video, why would a bushcrafter put a parallel like that, build a parallel to maybe throw a tarp on for shelter right over some big boulders? There's no sense in that.
Not with as many trees as there were in the area that could have been used.
Exactly. And the way that it was constructed. Now, I said in that video that that was in our line of campground Sasquatch. That was not a campground. Don't get me wrong. That is a day-use picnic area. So there's no camping there. So why would a bushcrafter build a shelter in a day-use picnic area? As far as I'm concerned, that's illegal. And same with the teepee. There's no sense in building a shelter in a spot where you can't camp. Ingrid and I talked about it. That teepee is not big enough for anybody to even sit in. I showed Ingrid inside of the teepee, and she could barely move around.
That was bumping my head on everything. And I'm only 5'5".
I have to talk up a little bit.
Okay.
But yeah, it wasn't big enough as a shelter. It wasn't big enough as a playhouse or anything else. So we're going to leave it at that, okay? Plus, to add another thing, we've both been studying bushcraft for the last year and a half. We follow one site, one channel on YouTube that we do follow consistently. We've watched all their videos pretty much, and they are bushcrafters. And to give a shout out, they're not subscribers of ours yet. But the name of their channel, it's a young couple, and they're in southern Ontario, Canada. That's Alexis Outdoors. Alexis Outdoors. They got a fantastic little dog that they're training to be their hiking dog. They canoe and stuff, but they do a lot of bushcraft. They build shelters out in the forest. She's got a great knife collection. I was going to do a gear section, but I'm going to wait on that because I picked up one of the knives that she uses, bushcraft knife, and it's fantastic. So I'll show that in another video, and some of the other stuff that we've picked up. But to get back on track, every time that they go out, she goes out into the forest twice a week, I think. And she builds a fire. She takes her backpack with her, and she takes out coffee and food stuff. She builds a small fire bushcraft style. And then she cooks the food and messes with her dog and stuff. Before she leaves that spot, she cleans it. You can barely tell that she's there. She cuts trees that are dead to use in the fire, finds wood and stuff. But when she leaves there, there's no trace except for the ashes in the dirt. And they don't leave. True bushcrafters don't leave traces. Unless they leave a shelter, you know, that they've cut all the wood and made a lean-to or something for other bushcrafters to come in to stay in and stuff. These structures that we find, there's barely any cut pieces, and if they are, we think it's from the Forest Service doing the clear cut and stuff. There's no uniformity to them. In a bushcraft shelter, there's uniformity. Nice, neat, all the wood that's instilled into them is cut to length, and lashing, paracord lashing in them and stuff. So if anybody knows of any bushcrafters that just go out into the forest with no equipment and builds these structures this way, please let us know, because we'd like to talk to them. We'd like to see their structure. Because for a year and a half, like I said, we've been studying. We have not found any of these. We'd like to give a couple quick shout outs. I had a big list made out and I forgot it back in the car. I know.
Okay.
The ones that I don't remember today, I'll do in the next video, I promise. One shout out is to a researcher down in the Colorado Springs area that came on. And his YouTube channel is Modern Explorer, Mateo. Mateo, thanks for coming aboard, buddy. I discovered Mateo actually over a year ago, or about a year ago, and he did a bushcraft, and he's another bushcrafter. He actually goes out into the forest and builds bushcraft shelters and stays in them. And I've looked at his shelters, I've watched his videos, and none of his shelters look like anything that we find and that we post, okay? So go over and check out the shelters that Mateo built. But the one video that I watched, as soon as he put it up, and like I said, I think it was a year and a half ago, where he went out on a bushcraft expedition and he built one. And he filmed the whole trip going in. And he did find a teepee out in the forest that he did stay in overnight. And I started looking at that teepee, and it sure looked a lot like the teepees that we're finding. And he called it a bushcraft teepee. But like I said, there were barely any cut pieces in that teepee. There was nothing shelter about it because the wind just blew right through it and everything else. You could put a tarp around it, but there'd be some lashing from the tarp being there and stuff. But I looked at it and I'm going, wow, that looks familiar. And then he kept going, walking through the forest and stuff, and I know where he goes. I know roughly the area. And I kept seeing different stuff that we find all the time. And he wasn't a researcher then. And then he had an experience with the Sasquatch. He's had 2 experiences now. So go in, check out his channel. As a matter of fact, the video that he just posted yesterday is a video on his 2nd experience with the Sasquatch. Okay? I want to give another shout out that he subscribed to our channel this morning. And I don't know how he found out that we had a YouTube channel and what we were doing. But Neil, thanks, buddy. I've known Neil for a long time, probably going on 15 years. We're both avid anglers. That's why I'm a little sore today, is because I went out yesterday ice fishing down the hill of death. This hill that we got to go down to get to the lake is probably 45 degrees, and it's a long hill. And going down's not bad, but coming back up, I keep saying I'm going to get my snowmobiles running. I'm not doing this hill of death anymore, and I still haven't done it. But yesterday there was a young couple out there that had their quad out there, and the snow was about 8 inches deep. There was more snow than we expected. But they had their quad out there, so I could have took Squatchzilla, and I didn't. Future trips, maybe. But Neil's a professional walleye fisherman also, plus he runs a walleye fishing guide service here in Colorado. It's called Rocky Mountain Adventures Guide. So if anybody wants to come to Colorado and fish for walleye, white bass, wiper, and stuff, Neil's your man. Just Google him, and he's phenomenal. I also administer a Colorado Fishing Forum, and before I used to just be a regular member. It's called coloradofisherman.com. I used to just be a member, and then it fell into disarray. The owner sold it to another company from Canada, and they needed somebody to run it, and so I ended up taking over the fishing forum. I still do that today, so I do spend a lot of time on the internet doing the YouTube channel. I still administer the fishing site, but it's kind of died down because, to put it honestly, Facebook has killed all the fishing forums, hunting forums, and stuff like that. And going back, Neil's also got a YouTube channel, but he doesn't have any videos up yet. But if you'd like to go in and subscribe, he's got some guys in there that you can watch. His YouTube channel is High Plains Angler. And Neil, if you need some help making some videos, give me a call. I got the camera, buddy. Neil and I have been fishing together, yeah. And he does a lot of things for the wiper fishing here in Colorado. He started an organization for the population to conservation of wipers. A wiper is a half striper, half white bass, and one of the hardest fighting fish there are. So kudos to Neil. Thanks for coming aboard, buddy. Like I said, the rest of you I'll get on the next video since I forgot my list. We just wanted to get out and do this. We were going to call it the Snowfield Chat. There's no snow here.
No.
So we're just going to call it Sasquatch Chat for today. And we would like to get together and do this more often. Give shout outs and stuff. Now we also have some announcements. The way that we work our research team is I do the videoing, Ingrid does the still photography, and we put the two together to make our videos, and I handle the YouTube side. We're non-monetized, like we keep saying. We don't want any money for this. Every bit of equipment that we buy is out of our own pocket. This camera we're filming on now is about $1,000. We've bought a lot of other stuff. I've got another camera That was almost $1,000. A full spectrum camera that we're going to start using. The drone. I brought the drone today, but as you can hear, it's too windy to fly it. That was $1,000. So yeah, we've spent a lot of money doing this stuff, and we spent a lot of money on our other interests that we're going to get into in a minute. More than $1,000.
Yeah.
But yeah, since our last video, in our last video, I told you that I was heading to Kentucky on a research trip. And what it was, I was invited to Louisville, Kentucky on a ghost hunting trip. The paranormal is another interest of ours. I've explained it that we do live in a house that is occupied by some spirits and ghosts. And we've had some bad ones come through and we've gotten rid of them. But the ghost trip that I was invited on in Kentucky was with Bishop James Long from the Ghost Adventures team and Dr. Brad Mulder from South Carolina, who is one of the engineers and builders of radionics machines, which for anybody that doesn't know what that is, it's basically in just to wrap it up real quick, it's an energy amplifier, which you can use in ghost hunting since ghosts are basically energy. We also use them now. We're starting to use them in Sasquatch research since Sasquatch is said to hone in on energy, like power lines. And fortunately, right above almost where we're sitting right now are power lines. And what we're sitting in, we'll show you in a couple minutes. But it's strange, and what it's doing here, we have no idea. But we keep looking around because we keep hearing weird noises.
In the same spot.
Yeah, in the same spot. But yeah, so Dr. Brad was there, Bishop James Long was there, there were supposed to be a couple others. Bishop David Price from Waverly Hills Sanatorium was supposed to be there, but he couldn't get off, and so he wasn't able to show up. And that turned out, talking with Bishop James Long, some of the stories that he told us, it didn't sound like demons, it didn't sound like ghosts or anything else, it sounded like Sasquatch to me. And I told him. And he knew nothing of Sasquatch. And so Connie Willis from Coast to Coast AM Radio and Blue Rock Talk TV, go over there and check her out. She invited me to run out there to Kentucky to be with them two at the Gates of Hell Cemetery, where there were some other things going on, and that's why they were ghost hunting there. It was for one of Connie's shows. Excuse me. And I was supposed to go to basically for myself to research the Sasquatch interaction with all this. And I got to the spot at noon and I started walking around the cemetery. The Gates of Hell Cemetery, one of the names of it is actually Casey Cemetery. And there's another name of it. The original name I can't remember right now, but it was changed to Casey Cemetery because the whole Casey family is buried there. And the cemetery dates back to the Civil War days. I walked through the cemetery, I was finding graves from the early 1800s. And it was cool. And it sits clear back in the backwoods of Kentucky. I told Connie and Brad, if I hear one banjo, I'm out of here. Luckily I did. But it sits on top of a hill. The road to get there is like 11 miles long, and it's a single lane dirt road all the way up there. And the parking lot, all it is a dirt turnaround. That's all it is. And the headstones have been decimated by kids going up there and partying and kicking them over, breaking them and stuff. I found parts of headstones thrown down the hill, and it just made me sick. But as soon as I got there, wintertime, nothing but oak trees all the way around it, and some birch trees. But there was about 4 or 5 inches of oak leaves on the ground. And I kept hearing the whole time I was there, from noon up to where those other two got there, I kept hearing footsteps down in the leaves. So I'd walking around and just scoping out, and I did not see no game. What I did find was structure down the side of the hill. I found a cave. Of course, Kentucky's full of caves. Everybody knows Sasquatch lives in caves, stays in caves, habituates in caves, and so forth. And so I thought, okay, this is going to get interesting. So Dr. Brad showed up. The first thing he said as soon as he gets out of the car is, "Man, this is creepy." I said, "You haven't seen nothing yet." And so unfortunately, Bishop James didn't get there till about 8:30 at night. We were going all night. We were there all night on this ghost hunting trip. I took all my ghost hunting equipment. He didn't get there till 8:30 at night, and it was rainy the whole time. Rain would come and go and stuff. It was overcast. You could just see the silhouette of the sky through the trees and stuff. And to make a long story short, as soon as Brad got there, he opened up the back of his Jeep. He was getting his stuff together. I had some of my stuff already out. I had my FLIR camera out, and I was already scoping, because at 8:30 in the back hills of Kentucky, it was so dark you could barely see the hand in front of your face with no light. So he's in his Jeep, back of his Jeep, and all of a sudden he stands straight up and he says, "Did you guys hear that?" I said, "What's that?" He said, "I just heard 2 stomps down the hill, and I heard like a knock." I said, "Yeah, I've been hearing that all day." He says, "Is that what I think it is?" And I said, "Yes, it is." And he started getting freaked out, and then all of a sudden he started getting a musty, wet animal smell. I said, "It's raining, James." I said, "Sasquatch has a lot of hair." So he started getting a little freaky there too, creeped out. Dr. Brad, I had already talked to him and walked him around and showed him what I had found. He was a little creeped out. So to make a long story short, we did the ghost trip. We got EVPs. We got a lot of stuff. Voices, weird voices over the ghost box. And then we started hearing this one voice that was just creepy as hell. I'm not gonna lie, it was creepy over the ovilus. That told us to get out, told us to run. And this whole time we're hearing stuff on the outside of the cemetery, more wood knocks coming from all different sides. We were hearing grunts and growls and whoops and hollers and stuff, and it was getting interesting to me because I knew exactly what it was. And then all of a sudden we're down and we're waiting for the rain to let up a little bit so that I can get out some more equipment, ghost hunting equipment. I've got an SLS camera, and if anybody doesn't know what that is, it's called the Stickman camera. And what it does is it changes spirit energy into stick figures on the monitor. And I've got one of those. And I was going to take it out, but it was raining so hard, I said, "I'm not taking out any of my specialty gear, I'm sorry." So we're standing in the parking lot, and 2 cars come driving up. And a bunch of young teenage kids gets out. And James, being the great person that he is, and a Catholic Church bishop. Also, I'd like to say one thing. Bishop James Long is also called the exorcist priest, because he's the one that the Catholic Church calls in to do exorcisms. He's got 29 exorcisms under his belt. So I was in good hands. But so James walks down and he's talking with these kids. He wanted to give them an education on what the cemetery is. That's why it's called Gates of Hell. And they saw my hat, my gone squatching hat, and all of a sudden they started hearing talking off in the forest down the hill. And a couple wood knocks, and one of the kids asked me what it was, and I said, "Do you believe in Sasquatch?" And he says, "Well, I've seen it on TV." I said, "This ain't TV, bud." He says, "Is that what it is?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm afraid it is. Or that's what I think it is." And so we start talking, educating them on the cemetery, the spirits in there, the good, the bad, and what's on the outside of the cemetery, the Sasquatch. And Ingrid called me on the phone because we were supposed to be live broadcasting, but we couldn't get, all of our batteries kept going dead. And I mean dead. Phone batteries were going dead. My camera batteries were going dead. My tablet, the iPad, everything was just starting to go nuts. So we couldn't broadcast. I had a couple bars on my AT&T phone. I had just taken it off the charger and Ingrid called. So I'm talking with Ingrid on the phone, and James has his big beam flashlight, and he's talking about the witch's tree in the back of the cemetery. And so he turns his flashlight on and he points it to the back of the cemetery. And they saw an 8-foot bipedal being that was black and hairy walking through the cemetery by the witch's tree. And there's a history to the witch's tree. If you do a YouTube search for Gates of Hell Cemetery, you'll see what it is. But all of a sudden, one of the girls, she just screamed bloody murder. I heard the one kid that was driving said, "We're getting the hell out of here." And Ingrid heard it over the phone and asked me what's going on. I turned just in time as he turned the flashlight off. And he was freaking. And as soon as I turned around, I saw the silhouette of an 8-foot creature. Sorry, I don't mean creature.
Being.
Bipedal being. In the dark, I saw him through the silhouette of the trees in the sky, walking past the witch's tree, down the hill, and there's a cave at the bottom of that hill, off into the forest, and that's where I found the structures earlier that day. So the whole trip turned out to be a Sasquatch trip for me, and having a sighting and all the other experiences that I had there, it made it well worth me going out there, except the drive back was torture. The drive back was worse than anything that could have happened to me at that cemetery. I ended up driving back through a total whiteout blizzard through Missouri and Kansas. Missouri was bad. Missouri, they at least were out plowing. As soon as we passed in to the Kansas border, there were no snow plows out. There was nothing. The highway was closed down in one of the towns. I can't remember which one. So they detoured us off the highway, back onto the highway. And as soon as we got back on the highway, I was in line with a couple semis, and I wasn't going to pass them. I was just doing 45 right behind them. I thought that was a safe place. A couple minutes later, about a dozen semis passed us doing about 70. And the highway was sheer black ice. Well, a couple miles down the road, they had an emergency closure of the highway. They were detouring us off the road, and they said that there was a mass collision up ahead. And
They took you up to Manhattan, Kansas.
they took us up Manhattan, Kansas, on back road Kansas that had not been plowed yet. And unfortunately, one of the vehicles that was in our parade slid off the highway, or it wasn't even a highway, slid off the road down a hill, and he was killed. We go up to Manhattan. I'm talking with Ingrid on the phone, and she tells me that she had just heard on the news that the highway was closed down and that 7 people were killed in that accident. And I pulled off to a gas station to get gas because I wasn't going to get caught out there in that weather with no gas. And all of a sudden a tow truck goes by with one of the semis, tractors that had passed me, and it was just crunched like a beer can. So I know exactly what happened. So 8 people died because of them idiots. That's the best way I can call it. They were idiots. 45 miles an hour I thought was too fast, but since I was in line, I felt safe. So I was going to pull off on the way back because I just drove straight through up to Kansas. I was going to pull off from Kansas and stay the night there. And I was shaking, I was so pumped and everything else, I drove straight through to Denver. So that was that. But it was well worth going for the experience that I had there. And hope to be invited back for some other adventures out there. There are a lot out there in Kentucky. So quit rambling.
Please.
We have a couple announcements. Ingrid works the Facebook page and the Twitter page, and she's got some good news that on upcoming stuff that involves us. So go ahead.
Well, on Twitter, I recently started following this podcast called The Circle Path. They're relatively new, and they don't have like professional quality broadcasting voices yet, but I think they're getting there, and they always research what they're going to talk about before they do. And so I was just really impressed with, the thoughtfulness of their broadcasts. And so I suggested that they, reach out to Connie Willis and have her on one of their podcasts. And they liked that idea, so I set them up, and then they invited Tony and I on. So next Friday we're going to be taping the podcast, and it'll probably be released. I don't know what the podcast terms are for it.
A few days after.
So that's The Circle Path. You can find them on Twitter. That's their Twitter handle. I know they're on Podbean, but I don't know what other podcast outlets that they're available on.
If we find out, we will let everybody know.
We'll put a link or something in or something.
Yeah, and on this video down below in the comment, in the description, we'll put a link to their Twitter page.
Okay. And then just this morning, I was having a conversation with another Twitter user called Nightmare365 about that recent Sasquatch sighting on Stephens Pass in Washington State. I honestly believe it's a tree because you look at the same camera now and that thing is still there. So either it's been frozen in place, it's a statue, or it's a tree stump. So we were talking about it, and they've invited us on their podcast. So we're gonna discuss it, and chances are we're gonna do it, and we'll let you know more about that. Part of the things I like to talk about is, not everything is Sasquatch, because if everything is Sasquatch, then nothing is Sasquatch. And so we always try to research and debunk everything we come across. Because those videos that just show, oh my God, look what Sasquatch did. Sasquatch did this. Sasquatch piled all these rocks up. It just totally demeans everybody else's research. So we're hoping to reach out and do more of that, just to educate ourselves and other people about what the research really is. It's not all structure. It's not just what a pretty teepee. There's a lot more to it than that.
Exactly. And Leon with Bigfoot Okanagan, in one of his last videos, he made a statement at the end of that video that says, I hate to burst all your bubble, all you Sasquatch researchers' bubble, but he said all the structure, or 99% of this, the structure you're showing is made by humans. To an extent, I believe that. That's why we try to debunk everything. But there may be some of our structures that have a human element in it, but what we say is, well, maybe that was started by Sasquatch, and humans found it and added to it. Like some of the teepees. We know that humans have been in them.
Oh, yeah.
But did humans start it? Did humans build the whole thing? It doesn't have human design. So that's like she said, we try to debunk everything that we find. We try to be sincere in our research. And we learned that from Leon also.
Yes.
Yeah, go over and watch some of his videos. He's really good. So hopefully, one other bit. Another thing that we were going to do today is we were actually going to go out in the snow and look for footprints like we did last year. If you go back through our videos, those that didn't see it yet, we found and showed actual what we're calling Sasquatch footprints. Because when there's 24 inches of snow and you find a barefoot track, it's not human. Especially when we found some that were 23 inches long.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, if that's a human.
I want to meet that human.
Yeah, that's super shack. So what we did, and I'll let Ingrid explain a little bit better, but we wanted to go out and find some footprints so that next week, if we go out, we can use this new equipment better on the footprints.
So there's always been an issue with casting in snow because any chemicals that you use can affect the snow. It can melt it and it can, shift the shape and all that. And one of my weird interests is I like to listen to, read, and watch murder investigations and find out how they were solved and who did it and just the whole thing about it. And I was listening to this podcast about a murder investigation where it was finally solved and the guy was convicted because of a perfect boot print that they had cast in snow. Well, that got me thinking, okay, police cast in snow all the time in Alaska. There's got to be an easy way to do this, to get a quality good enough to convict somebody. Well, there was more to it than that's just that, but the boot print would really put the cherry on top. And so I went online and started Googling police casting in snow and everything I could about that. And I came across this one article that talked about casting in snow. So I forwarded it to Tony, totally out of the blue. He had no idea that it was coming. What do you think of this? Yeah. So he goes on and actually finds something that he thinks is going to work. So I'll let him talk about that part.
Yeah. A lot of the researchers that we hang around with, that we know,
Nothing.
Some of them have done casting in snow. They use different materials, like one of them's quick drying concrete. To me, in the snow, that would distort the print too much.
Because it heats up, doesn't it?
Well, no, this isn't that stuff.
Oh, okay.
But it takes forever to harden good enough. And I didn't want to do that. We've done plaster castings. Plaster would take forever in snow. And to get a good base for plaster, and even for the quick dry concrete, a lot of researchers carry spray paint with them, and they spray the print down with spray paint. And then you got to let the spray paint dry, and then you pour your material into the print that way. Well, I'm sorry, but spray paint is a chemical, and you're putting chemicals out in the forest. I don't agree with it. And so one of the other things that was on this site is what's called dental stone. And that is the actual stuff that dentists use when they make molds of your mouth and stuff. The only problem with that is that it's a two-part, and that's the one that heats up.
Okay.
When you mix, it's got a catalyst that you add to it, and that actually gets hot. So you got to put it in the snow to cool it down before you pour it into the cast. And any kind of heat is going to distort your track. And if we find a good enough track, we want to see all the lines in the track and everything else. We want a good track. Because Bobo told me the week that I took Bobo out, Bobo told me that if you are more apt to see a Sasquatch than you are to find a good track. Okay, a good footprint. And that what he's talking about there is where you can see the lines, the veins, and all that stuff in the print. And we agree, because the tracks that we have found, all they are is indentations in the dirt with toes. You can see the toes. We found some with mid-tarsal break in them and stuff, but we haven't found one that looks like super good.
It's castable.
Yeah. So I read a little bit more, and there is a product called Snowstone. Snowstone is what the FBI and a lot of law enforcement use. And what you do, it comes in a powder form, and what you do is you take a sifter with you, and you pour some of the powder in the sifter, and then you sift a base layer over the print. And then with the rest of the powder, you mix it with water and mix it really good, like you do plaster Paris and stuff. And then you pour that into the track, and it dries super fast. Within a half an hour, you'll be able to dig it up, and you want to make sure that it's still not dry. It takes 24 hours to completely dry. But within a half an hour, it's dry enough to where you can pull it out of the snow, and you can wrap it, and you can take it home. And this stuff is thin enough to where it's going to get in to every little crack and crevice in that track, in a handprint, in a footprint, or anything else. And if I remember right, that's the one that's wax, part wax and stuff. Might be. I'll check it out. Might be a paraffin wax base to it. So that's what I ordered, and it wasn't cheap. So
quality never is.
Yeah. And so we're gonna take it out. We're gonna try to find some footprints, and we're gonna cast them with that stuff. And we will do a video on it when we do, and we will show the actual print and give a review of how this stuff works. So, like I said, once again, it's called Snowstone, and you can do a Google search on it. And we got some coming. It'll be here tomorrow, so next trip we can make out and actually get back there without
a blizzard coming.
Yeah, and if the road is open,
yeah,
we hope to find some prints and cast them. So that's one of the new
tools in our
arsenal. So we'll end the chat here because it's been longer than what I wanted. But I'm going to turn the camera off. I'm going to take it off the tripod, and I want to explain where we're at and what we're doing here and what we just found here. So
see you in a few.
We'll be back. All right, we're down to one bar on this battery, so I got to make this quick. And this battery went super fast because it was brand new before I started that last clip. And that clip really wasn't long enough. So the area that we're in is doing something to this battery. This is what we just found in this area we're at. We are in an urban setting, okay? Now, we're not saying Sasquatch did this. This very well could have been kids, but just the construction of it, is just strange. Very strange. Especially in this area that we're in. Like I said, we're in an urban area, and I'll explain a little bit more later. But this could have been, it could have been homeless people, but there's not much, no roof over it, no nothing. And the way this is all laid in, it's just nothing's cut, it's all broke. So it was interesting. Where we are at is called Riverdale Road in Thornton, Colorado. Riverdale Road, for people that have never heard of it, is considered one of the most haunted roads in the United States. What we're trying to find, this is part of our ghost hunting expedition spots. We're gonna let you our subscribers, let us know if you want us to post up some ghost hunting trips. It's Sasquatch Journey, and that's what we've wanted to keep it. But with all the new equipment that we've been buying for ghost hunting and stuff too, we either start a new channel or we just include them in this channel here. But a little bit of history on Riverdale Road real quick is the area that we're standing in is the site of where a mansion used to stand back here, the Wolpert Mansion. And the Wolpert Mansion was original back in, believe the 30s. And it was a stone mansion. Wolpert family lived there. One of the legends is that Mr. Wolpert went nuts, came in, shot his whole family, and then burnt the place to the ground. And that's why this is haunted. This is also called Gates of Hell. And I'll explain that maybe in a later video. Truth of the matter is, Mr. Wolpert didn't kill his whole family. Mr. Wolpert didn't burn the mansion down. But the mansion did burn down in 1975, 76. Okay? I know because I used to come up here back in high school because we always knew this was haunted up in here. But somebody lit the mansion on fire. Some speculation is that it was homeless vagrants. Some speculation is that it was satanic worshipers, which they were on the property. And that's another story. But what we're doing right now is we're trying to find exactly, because I don't remember. There were so many kids coming into this mansion after it burned down and stuff that a person bought it and he donated it to the city, and the city turned it into a park. They excavated most of the land. But this is where the mansion stood, back in here. And that's what we're looking for, is where it was. So with the satanic rituals that were going on outside of the mansion, and possibly in the mansion since it was vacant all them years, is one of the reasons why it's haunted right here. Now up Riverdale Road there are also some more haunting experiences. There's supposed to be a white truck, a ghost truck, that follows you at night. It'll follow you up the road. It'll run you off the road and stuff. People have seen it, actually seen it, and had them followed. And there's nobody in the truck. They've stopped, the truck has stopped, and nobody's been in the truck driving. So we're gonna check that out too. On up the road, there's a hill up there. It's called Joggers Hill. And what happened there is a gentleman was jogging up the road, and somebody that was speeding up the road ran him over and killed him. So now it's said that if you park up there at the top of the hill and listen with your windows down or even outside, sometimes you can hear a person jogging up the hill and there's nobody there. You get in your car and you hear the footsteps, the jogging steps, and all of a sudden somebody's tapping on your roof, on your windows, and nobody's out there. There's another story of a lady in white walking down the road. Supposed to be, she was supposed to get married. She either left the wedding, decided not to do it, or she was jilted. So now she wanders Riverdale Road looking for her lost lover and so forth. And people have reported, and there's actual police records. People have stopped, asked her if she needs help, and she doesn't answer, or she says, I need a ride. And so they let her into the car, and they're driving down the road, and they turn around to look in the back seat, and there's nobody there. There are actual police reports of that. I find this real interesting. Now, there's also rumors that down through history, this used to be an Indian, Native American thoroughfare. They used to come from like Nebraska, which is east of us there. This was one of their ways through the state, going to their hunting grounds or winter living grounds and stuff. And supposedly out here down Riverdale Road, there's supposed to be a Native American burial site. And people have said that they've heard Indian drums at night and stuff. There's reports of people walking through here looking, doing ghost hunting trips, hearing growls, hearing grunts, being chased by big dark things. And the South Platte River is directly over that way. And if you know the South Platte, it's a long river. There used to be wooded areas all the way up the riverside. So when I started hearing about these reports of grunts and screams and howls and stuff, I instantly started thinking Sasquatch. So that's why we're up here. And so it's kind of a dual trip for us. We got Sasquatch, we got ghost hunting. I want to check to see if Sasquatch live in the area. Since there's waterways, there's food, they've probably been here forever. And if the Native Americans were here, so were the Sasquatch. So we'll come back in here when it's snow on the ground possibly and look for foot tracks. And we will be investigating the ghosts and the urban legends that are in this area. And I'll still want to find the remnants of where the mansion was. And I'm sure it's right in this area. There have been people that have found the cornerstones and the burnt trees from when the mansion caught on fire. I just need to find out where it is, because I've seen the mansion back in the 70s when we used to come up here, but there was alcohol involved and some other things. And so trying to find them might be a little difficult. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Give us a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, and you don't like this format, we won't do it too often, but maybe once every couple months, we like to do a Sasquatch chat. Let us know if you want to see some ghost hunting trips, like up Riverdale Road here. We still have plans to do the Stanley Hotel one of these days. We want to go up there and stay there and do some investigations. So let us know if you guys would like to see that. And y'all have a good weekend. We're gonna walk around here. The wind chill just got really cold. So we'll walk around a little bit farther, a little bit longer, and then we're heading back home. So have a good weekend and Squatch out. Bye.